Howdy, it's Jim Morado, and this is the middle of August, 2024. We're in McMinnville, Tennessee, at least in that area. We're driving out to Cumberland Caverns, and this was our first time in this area. We made, it was about a 4-hour drive each way from where we live. And we did this in a day trip. We got up really early. We came home late. We went down. We wanted to go to the Tennessee Wildman and Cryptid Convention, which was in town. We went. We did that for a couple of hours. We had a really good time. I'll put up another video on that. But, you know I love caves. And Cumberland Caverns is in this neck of the woods. And it's been high on my list for a while, especially being connected to that Bluegrass Underground TV show. They host concerts here. At least they have in the past. It looks like that's kind of on hold at the moment. But yeah, it kind of makes it a very significant cave, very interesting cave. I've been wanting to get here for a while. So this was a great day trip to come and hit a couple of nice things. McMinnville, Tennessee is a great town too. I keep falling in love with these small towns in Tennessee. Just some great ones. And yeah, Tennessee is just such a wonderful state. And every time I'm driving through, I just stumble upon little places that are just cozy, just nice and cozy. The best of small town America. We ate at a biscuit place, kind of on the main street in McMinnville, and I'll put up another video on that. We had a really nice meal. And just enjoyed our time here. And I'm looking forward to coming back. In fact, I'd love to come back to the cave. We took the shortest tour you can take. I believe it's the historic tour. The historic walking tour. There's a longer tour you can take where they show you a movie. But being that we were somewhat pressed on time, and we were able to do this tour with just my wife and I and our wonderful guide. His name was Derek. You'll meet him in a moment. This ended up being just a great opportunity for us. Derek was very pleasant and answered all of our questions, and he's very much into music and caving, and he was just the perfect person to have as our guide. If you want to go ahead and fast forward about 5 minutes into this video, we start the cave tour. Feel free to do that. I won't be offended. I know I used to catch Bluegrass Underground on TV here and there, but I haven't lately. I know I really enjoyed Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros when they were on. As a little band I've enjoyed, one of the few somewhat newer bands that I really got into for a moment. So it was kind of cool seeing them playing in the cave. We're pretty much pulling into their parking lot. Of course, they do the gem mining. They have a nice gift shop. It's pretty right there. We checked out the gift shop quite a bit. I bought my usual. I usually get a patch, stickers, postcard. I love when they have some of their old memorabilia, old brochures framed and on display. I love that kind of stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. There's a map of the cave. Derek would tell us here in a little bit the cave is about 27 miles long, which is very impressive. There's our tickets. And they would tear off just a little bit of them. I did get to keep those for my scrapbook. And there is part of an old organ that used to be in the cave. Derek will talk a little bit about that here in a moment. They do make you watch a little video. Don't steal rocks, don't touch stuff, that kind of thing. It was kind of a funny video, actually. They had a good time making it. And then they take you on the cave tour. So we're about to start that here in a moment.
Alright, so before we head down to the cave, we do have a short little video for you guys to watch.
Sure.
It just goes over all the basic rules and information that we have. Plays on TV directly to the left here. I'll take your ticket stubs here at the door, and then I'll head to the end.
Formations in the cave that are very old and very delicate. The oils in our fingers can cause them to not continue to grow, and we want them to carry on getting bigger for future guests to enjoy. Not to mention, it is against the law. So, there's that. Rule number 7. Everything out here stays out here. Everything in the cave stays in the cave. Please don't leave items in the cave and don't...
Have you guys been to a cave before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been here before?
No, this is the first time.
We probably go to Mammoth Cave every month or two.
And real quick, just so you know, I'm going to go ahead and cut out about 3 or 4 minutes of video of us just walking up to the cave. I went back and watched this. It wasn't that exciting. So if you're a completist and you're curious about how long that walk is, we'll say about 4 minutes.
Now that we're here at the entrance of the cave, welcome to Cumberland Caverns officially.
Thank you.
Now, we're called Cumberland Caverns plural because we're actually made up of 2 different cave systems here. The entrance of the cave that we're at now used to be known as the Henshaw Cave back in the day, named after the family that owned this property in the early 1800s, but we don't actually know when it was discovered because it wasn't too popular with early explorers, being only about 2 rooms in size in total. It's quite a small cave, so records weren't really kept up well with. But the family did know that it was here when they owned this property. So it must have been known roughly in the early 1800s. Much larger portion of our caves, we do know exactly where it was discovered though, and it was actually discovered in the year 1810 by a man named Aaron Higginbotham, about half a mile back out in the woods in that direction. As he was hiking up through the woods here, surveying the land that he had just purchased, as back in those days it was very common for you to survey your own land when you purchased it, felt a cool breeze come up over the hill, and went and followed it. What he discovered was a small basketball-sized hole in the ground. Like any sane man, he decided to crawl right inside of it. Once he did that, he found passageways that went all throughout the mountain, leading to some exceptionally large rooms. My cave was very popular with explorers, all the way from 1810, all the way up until 1953, when they actually discovered a passageway from the Henshaw Cave here, leading directly into the largest rooms in the Higginbotham Cave. It made it significantly easier and quicker for us to access those rooms. So, just 3 years later, we opened up here as a show cave on July 4th, 1956, and we've been showing the cave off ever since. Yeah. You guys have any questions as we head on in?
Not at the moment. I'm sure we'll think of some.
Yeah. As you come down through here, you will start to feel that temperature drop. It might be a little bit slippery too. There's a handrail off to the left once we get inside if you need it. And when we get in there, I'll call back, let them know we made it okay, and we'll continue on.
So some critters up there?
Yeah, there was a bird building a nest up there.
Kind of an interesting looking nest.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what type of bird it was. Seemed to have moved on by now, though.
Ooh. It's always exciting walking into a cave for the first time.
Careful as guys come on in.
Yeah.
And I'll call back when we made it okay. I too. Thank you. And careful as come down through this pathway here. This is the first room of the Henshaw Cave that we're entering into now, and we call this room here the saltpeter room. Now we call it that because back in the day, originally in this space, they mined out saltpeter. That's because saltpeter is one of the main ingredients in gunpowder, and it actually makes up about 76% of gunpowder, so that's why they mined it out in this space here. Right over across the way, we can actually see a ledge right by the ceiling. That ledge is the original floor of this room. It would have extended all the way across this ledge that we see here, right next to our heads. They dug it out from that point on down to where we see it now.
Oh, but
it's the only room where they did that.
It's like 3 feet. It wasn't very tall, was it?
Yep. Yeah, this room would have been a crawl space for the most part until they dug it out. And the reason they did that is because the nutrients that saltpeter they were after was actually in the dirt here. As we come up here, we can actually see that process a little bit, or part of the process. And what they would do is they would take the dirt they collected in this space, bring it up here to these big wooden vats, which we call leaching vats, and they would run water over it to leach out the nutrients and the mineral in the soil. Careful, let's come up this hill.
Sure, thank you.
Now, once they did that, they would get a thing that we call nitro liquor, or nitrate liquor. They would take that outside in buckets and boil it off in big 1,000-pound cast iron pots that you can see here to the side. Now, once they did that, they would put saltpeter crystals around the edge, which they would grind up, combine with the 2 other ingredients, and they would get gunpowder. Now, this was a quite time-consuming process. That entire process would have actually taken 4 grown men about 6 days to complete. They would have only gotten about 1.5 pounds of saltpeter. That was enough to fire off maybe 1 or 2 cannonballs if they were lucky. So it was very hard work, but it was something that was very commonly done. You can find a lot of caves either called saltpeter caves or saltpeter mine caves. And right here is a diagram of a saltpeter mine facility, actually the Mammoth Caves, which is a few hours north of here in Kentucky. Now, the reason we know any of this was ever done here in our cave, though, was actually because of a man named Thomas Bailey, who came in here in 1917. And when he was coming in here to survey this cave out, he found these wooden vats. They piqued his interest, and he started to do some research. After that, he figured out that they were doing the saltpeter mining here, either during the 1812 or the Civil War period, or potentially both. And we actually have a little bit of evidence towards the Civil War, as our co-founder Tank Gore interviewed a man that he called the oldest spelunker. Now he called him that because he was actually a 106-year-old Civil War veteran who had mined for saltpeter in caves during the Civil War. What he told them is the biggest reason why, there's no plant life in here to use up any of the nutrients in the soil. So anything that was in here was pretty well set, and they knew that they could get it from here. But it was quite a difficult process, like we've already talked about, and he did tell them it wasn't where they got the majority of their saltpeter from. Where they got the majority of it from was actually from under chicken coops. As primarily, when they come in here, those nutrients would be coming from the droppings left by bats, their guano, but it can come from other animals. The droppings left by chickens would replenish the nutrients in the soil a lot quicker and a lot easier to access than having to crawl in and out of the cave to do that work. So that was where they ended up getting most of it from. Also did say on the rare occasion too that they would potentially get it from under houses as well, and as back in the day they didn't have standardized plumbing, and it can come from pretty much anywhere. Yeah. You guys have any questions about saltpeter mining?
No, we were just at Saltpeter Cave in Kentucky.
Yeah.
About a year ago.
Yep, so yeah, it's very interesting. Some of them have some really interesting setups.
Oh,
What
yeah.
I saw was actually they had donkey stalls down there.
Yeah.
So they had donkeys that basically lived down in the cave and would move the stuff around.
But are you talking about Saltpeter Cave in Kentucky? Is that the one you're talking about? Because that's...
I don't know, actually.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember. It was one that somebody told me they had been to when they were caving.
Okay.
But there are a lot of different ones. So this interesting formation right here to our right, this is what's called Moby Dick Formation. It's named after the whale Moby Dick. And early explorers came down to the cave here, would have named it that because when they were coming through here with their pine torches, oil lamps, or even carbide lamps, they would see the cave a little bit differently than we do nowadays. They thought in the darkness this looked a lot like the whale Moby Dick. You can kind of see it here with the head on the right side, going right on down the back, the dorsal fin, and traveling right around to the tail down in the pool here. This is also a natural pool. It is naturally fed water from the surface. We added in the rock wall here to make sure it didn't fall down in, but other than that, it is natural. And as we head through this way, we're actually going into that passageway that they discovered in 1953 that I talked about outside. Now, another man named Tom Barr was coming through here doing a survey of the Henshaw Cave. Right in this spot here, he found a small hole that was only about 9 inches by 15 inches in size in total. It's about the size of a legal piece of paper turned on its side. Now, he theorized, looking at his maps, that would have connected to the Higginbotham Cave. So he tried to squeeze in, but as many wouldn't be able to, he couldn't fit into that space. So he went and tried to get a couple of his local caving buddies, Tank Gore, Dale Smith, like I said, Tank Gore, one of our co-founders, and they were just barely able to squeeze in. Once they got into this space here, they actually found out it was so tight they couldn't turn around. They had to keep pressing forwards in hopes that they either would find a room that they could turn around in, or that they would reach the Higginbotham Cave. But as they continued to crawl down through here, pushing along with their fingertips and their toes, they ended up discovering it wasn't only just an extremely tight passageway, but the passageway was entirely covered on all sides by what we call cave coral or cave popcorn. It's very sharp, jagged formation that you can see all over throughout the cave. It's just bumpy stuff along the light here. And when they were putting all their body weight on it, this stuff almost acted like broken glass. So as they crawled down through here, from where we entered in back there, right up around the hill, they crawled for 3.5 excruciating hours, cutting themselves up the entire time as they went. They cut up their clothes, their skin. By the time they popped out in the Higginbotham Cave, Tom Barr actually had gone around to meet them. He said that they were so cut up, it looked like they'd gone through a human-sized meat grinder. So we call this the meat grinder passageway to this day.
Oh, what a name.
Yeah. They did later come through here and remove a lot of these like large rocks that we see here to our side to open up the passageway. But they actually used no explosive in the process. It was entirely done by hand and power tools. So, quite a lot of hard work was done for this passageway and to be able to figure out that the cave was this big and this accessible. Careful, let's come up through here. There's a handrail right here to the right. This hill's a bit slippery and steep, so watch your step. Right.
Hello.
Are these the ones you left in here 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
They've arrived. Jackson's all.
Hey.
So, as we enter into here though, we're coming into the first room of the Higginbotham Cave. The rooms will actually get progressively larger as we continue on from here, but this is what we call the Oasis Room. Now that name actually comes from that blue light right up there, or, well, what it highlights up there, a naturally formed pool of water in the floor. It only holds about a single gallon and it constantly refills from a slow drip from the ceiling. Back in the day, before that passageway, the meat grinder was discovered, it would have actually been one of the only sources for both drinking water and fuel for the early explorers as they came through here, because the Higginbotham Cave is actually what we call a dry cave. There's very little to no water here. Talked about that fuel though, as back in the day, many explorers would actually be using what we call carbide lamps. Now this is a chemical reaction lamp that was fairly common. Have you ever seen a picture of a miner with a light on his helmet?
Yeah.
You might have seen a carbide lamp before. And interesting enough, water gets put into the top chamber, drips down to the bottom on the carbide, natural mineral. When it comes in contact with water, actually creates acetylene gas. That gas would be created, pushed up out to the burn tip, and then be struck with an open flame and a reflector, bouncing all that light out forwards. This is a very common light source, and those guys that would have gone down to the meat grinder there would have actually been using it as they lit their way through. This here is Tom Barr, the man that discovered it. This here is Tank Gorin, and the center here is Dale Smith. Those are the two guys that crawled through there, got themselves all cut up. Right next to Dale there is our other co-founder, Roy Davis, who we'll actually talk about in the next room here, as he has a lot to do with how he started up here as a show cave. And then we have the surveyors who mapped out much of our cave here. These guys actually volunteered their time to map out the cave, and that's because all of these guys here were members of what we call the NSS. It's the National Speleological Society, which was basically a group of cave enthusiasts, explorers, and scientists who wanted to come together to both protect caves and study them. And some of the studying was mapping caves out. These guys here started in 1970, and before that point, it was thought the Higginbotham Cave was only about 6 miles in length in total. However though, after they got done in nearly 1979, nearly a decade, they actually figured out, as we currently know it, we have about 27.7 miles of traversable passageway throughout the cave here. Now, they would have done this very slowly as they came on down through, using those carbide lamps on their helmets. They would have mapped out each room as they went down through it, and anytime they found a new passageway, they would follow the passageway down through to its conclusion and see where it went from there. This could be quite time consuming and could lead them to tight spaces just like the meat grinder there. But thanks to them, we do have a good understanding of the majority of our cave here. Though they did stop primarily because they got tired. A decade's a pretty long time to be going in and out of cave and doing that work. So they actually stopped at a very specific number. They stopped at 4,444.4 meters. So that's a good number. I like that number. We're going to stop there. So we have them to thank for what we know of the cave right now. But as many of us are still NSS members, we're actually continuing to do this work. And this year we're coming through here to update those surveys, as well as we're also going to be continuing to push through new parts of the cave and hopefully continue to add to that mileage as we know it currently. Yeah. You guys have any questions about these guys here?
You said 27 point,
7 miles. Yep.
and we're going to see all 27.7 on this tour, correct? Is that, you're like, no, that's the 90
That'll
minute
take a
tour.
little bit longer, yeah. I don't think we'll be able to see all of it in 45 minutes.
Have you guys made any interesting discoveries, or like they found the sharks in Mammoth Cave? Is there anything like that here?
So we actually do have some shark's tooth in here.
Oh.
There's actually a shark's tooth directly above you here.
Oh, wait, hold on.
I can pull up my flashlight.
Yeah.
So, sorry. Yeah, right there.
Oh.
So that is the bottom part of a shark's tooth. The point is up in the ceiling, so unfortunately it's not the cool part that we see. But that's one of them. We definitely have fossils throughout the cave here, lots of shells. Over here are some of those. These are horn coral. You can find these all over throughout the cave. As well as we do have some bones, some very old ones. I think we have some, what is it, 20,000-year-old flint bones.
Oh.
They were found further back into the cave. And then there's some like 5,000-year-old bear bones that were found in some other parts of the cave. But that's about the extent. We don't have like any sharks.
Are those on
here.
display or anything, or they leave them where they're at?
Yeah, unfortunately, they're back in the cave.
Yeah.
We left them where they were.
Oh.
They did take like a couple bones to like date them, to be take them to the lab and date them.
Yeah.
But besides that, otherwise they're still left them where they are.
And any, Mammoth Cave has Floyd Collins. Do you guys have any legends like that? Anybody getting stuck or any weird stories?
Funny enough with that, we'll actually talk about that.
Sure.
Continue to the next room here.
Oh,
Be careful as you come down this hill. It's a little steep and slippery. So, funny enough, you mentioned that. I said Aaron Higginbotham was the guy that discovered the larger part of the cave we're in now. Actually, he is the very first person to have any history with the cave, and he was the very first person to get stuck, almost immediately, actually. When he found the cave, he did end up coming in. He wasn't really prepared to go through a cave and do all that work. So, as he came down through, he kind of lost track of time, and his torch got lower and lower on him. And when he was working his way back out, his torch went right out on the top of a large cliff that was about 30 to 45 feet. And he was plunged into the complete and total darkness of the cave. So, as he sat there trying to relight his torch, he fumbled and dropped everything off the side of the cliff there. He ended up getting stuck in the complete and total darkness there for 3 whole days. Before his friends found his knapsack outside of the cave, and then eventually came in to be able to find him. So he's kind of the very first person, and he is the kind of the little legend of the cave. But we have plenty of others here. We've had a rich history of explorers coming down through here for over 200 years. So there's lots and lots of them. Careful as come down through here. So you were asking about the concert space that earlier in the gift shop. This here is that space, and it is what they call a volcano room.
Oh, wow.
As you do come down to this room here, we're going to hang off to the left and go on the balcony of the volcano room. So watch your head, the ceiling gets a little bit low on us.
Yeah, he was talking to you, Jen. Ooh.
See this space
Oh,
here.
wow.
So, this is Volcano Room. This is where we'd have Bluegrass Underground, as well as other concerts under our Cumberland Caverns live name. But we do lots of other things down here that make this famous. We actually used to have we also do overnight stays down here in the cave, do school field trips, we eat their lunches down here, and then we also have private events from time to time. So that can be anything like birthday parties, graduation parties, or even weddings. Last wedding we had down here was about 2 months ago, and I actually had about 200 people down here in the cave for that wedding. We also had some fun ones too. We had a Lord of the Rings themed wedding one time. They came down in the full armor, chainmail, and swords.
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Let me get a good shot here real quick if you don't mind. This is too
Yeah,
cool.
no, go ahead.
There's got to be some cool rock star jumping or something. There's got to be some stories with the concerts. You know, anything totally crazy that you've heard?
We've had Jefferson Starship play here. They're one of the more famous bands to have.
Yeah.
We also had the Allman Betts, which were the children of the
Yeah.
Allman Brothers and Betsy.
I didn't know if there
I
were.
can't remember her name. She's very famous as well, but I'm just so bad with the names, I can't remember it.
I don't know if there were any crazy stories of, Keith Moon-esque throwing the drum off the stage kind of thing, or
Not that I'm aware of. It would be a very rock concert type thing to do.
Yeah.
But for one of the weddings we had down here, they actually rappelled down off the balcony here, down onto the stage below our feet, and got married there.
Oh, that's cool.
They were cavers, so you can actually see the clips up here from where they rappelled down from.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
As we come around the corner here, you'll actually be able to see the stage below the balcony. But one of the interesting things about this space here is that this is actually the lowest part in one of our tours. The bottom of this room is actually 333 feet below the surface of the mountain. We do have those concerts here. We can actually fit up to about 650 people seated. But we have had concerts larger than that stand. If you were curious about the chandeliers here too, come up here. We'll actually talk a little bit about that. That actually came from our co-founder Roy Davis, and talk about that. We have to talk about him a little bit first. How he started at the cave. He originally moved here from Indiana to go to college in Nashville, into David Lipscomb College. Heard about the cave from a friend, and once he did, he had to come and explore. He quickly fell in love with the cave, and he started coming actually so often that he caught the attention of the family who owned the property at the time, the Powell family, who thought anyone coming nearly every single weekend, like he was, thought that they were probably up to no good. So they ended up putting up a sign that said specifically, Roy Davis, keep out. Now,
Was that a joke or was that like?
it was very serious. They thought he was up to no good, so they just put up a sign, and it kind of broke his heart. So he actually went back to his dorm at college and put together a slideshow with all the pictures he'd been taking down here. Because besides exploring caves, he also had a passion for photography. So he had taken a lot of photos down here. When he came back and showed them that slideshow and how large the cave was here, they had a complete reversal of their opinion and actually put him in charge. And that's because they had never actually been in their cave. They knew they had it, but they had never been in it. They had no idea how large it was. And he had a big passion for it, so they thought they could trust him. With the finding of the meat grinder passageway, he eventually partnered up with Tank Gorin and got the permission from the Powell family to open up Cumberland Caverns here as a show cave. But to get this chandelier and this concert space that we have down here now, we actually have to fast forward quite a bit, all the way until 1981, when Roy went to go to Lowell's Metropolitan Theater in Brooklyn, New York, to purchase this pipe organ that we can see here to the left. Would have sat back to the left side of the stage down there, went all the way from the floor of the stage to the ceiling below the balcony. It's quite a large pipe organ. But he also saw the chandelier up there in the ceiling covered in scaffolding. They were renovating the theater, so he actually asked the workers what they were going to do with it. And the workers told him they planned on cutting the chain to the chandelier, watching it drop to the floor and be destroyed. Roy thought, well, that's a mighty big shame. That's a beautiful chandelier. So he actually offered to purchase it from them along with the pipe organ. In 1981, for both of those together, he paid only $1,000. That's a pretty big steal, just for the chandelier alone, as it was actually made in upstate New York in 1928, and it was one of 3 chandeliers ever created. It is 15.5 feet tall, 8.5 feet wide, and weighs 1,500 pounds. The majority of the weight from the chandelier comes from the 10,000 hand-cut Austrian crystals that makes up the chandelier's body. It's a little bit hard to tell from here, but they're kind of like disco ball shaped. Helps to be able to reflect that light and make it glow really pretty. But when he brought it down here in 1981, he hung it up in this space and proclaimed it the world's first underground theater. All of that was basically to impress an international group of spelunkers that were having a meeting here that same year, which I'd say probably safe to say he did. So I've never seen a chandelier in a cave before. You can kind of see what it looks like here. I mean, you said you've seen those concerts before on television, but this is what it looks like when they have those concerts down here. And that's what it looks like when somebody's working on the chandelier there. You kind of get a person up there for scale. You start to see just how big the chandelier really is.
When was, you know, when the last time it was that it was brought down?
I don't know exactly. It was shortly after it was put up in here, so sometime in the 90s, I want to say. Spitballing, not 100%
So it's been there
Yep.
secure for.
Yeah, for probably over 30 years, I would say, pretty confidently. But it was only ever brought down from the ceiling that one time to clean it and change the light bulbs. And after that, they actually decided they would never take it down from the ceiling again, as it was too difficult and dangerous to do so. So nowadays, we have to go up to it to do that work.
And it's secure. Everybody's confident that it's.
It's pretty secure. There's
Yeah.
actually a 4-foot long, 1.5 inch thick expansion bolt that goes up into the ceiling
Okay.
there that holds it there. And that expansion bolt is actually rated for 27,000 pounds.
Okay.
So quite a far stretch
Yeah.
from the 1,500 it is now.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow. What a great story. The chandelier alone. I mean,
Yeah.
So what happened to the organ?
So the organ, unfortunately, the base of it was made of wood, and wood doesn't hold up too well in this high humidity environment, so it actually just started to collapse under its own weight. So they ended up taking it out of the cave here and putting it into Roy's house that was on the property. When we do get back to the gift shop, though, I can show you one of the pipes from the pipe organ.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually strung up next to one of the pillars there.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. You have any questions about this space down here or the chandelier?
Well, it's just great to get to see it. It's
Yeah.
been on our list for a while.
Yeah.
We've crisscrossed and just never been right in this area, so we finally got to swing by and take the short tour today.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll actually continue up the hill here, see a little
Sure.
bit more of the cave. As we come up here, we're going to actually come up into one of the largest rooms in the cave, or the largest room in the cave. So you might be surprised to know the volcano room is actually the 5th largest room that we have here in the entire cave system.
I assume you've been to like the cave at Lookout Mountain, and have you been to Bell Witch Cave in Adams?
I haven't yet. It's on my list. I just haven't gotten the chance to get up there yet.
Yeah.
This room that we're passing through right now, this is what we call the boneyard room. It's called that because of all the broken formations that are scattered all throughout the left side of the room here. Now, people did this damage, unfortunately, as they came down in here back in the day, as it was very common to come into caves, break formations, take things out of the cave, and then also to graffiti or deface the cave, like the Webb Summer School right up here. They signed their name down here in the cave in July of 1903, as they actually came down here to spend 10 nights down here at the cave.
Wait, where they signed it at?
Right there.
Oh, right there, off the yeah.
So they would have done this by burning their signatures in with those carbide lamps that they were using as a light source. They took them off their helmet, burned their signatures in. It's a common way for people to do that. And they might have done some of this damage down through here, though we can't blame it all on them. There are lots of others came through here as well. And it kind of is a good place for us to talk about cave conservation. Because they didn't really know the type of damage they were doing to this in here when they did that stuff. They didn't know that on average it takes about 100 years for 1 cubic inch of formation to grow. And when they do this damage, it's likely never going to be fixed naturally within their lifetime, if it can be fixed at all. So MNSS started doing a lot of work to try to both get information out to educate the public, as well as get laws passed to help protect these caves. And they did that following our Caver's Creed. Leave nothing but footprints, take nothing but pictures, and kill nothing but time. So, the biggest law they ever got passed to help protect caves as a natural environment and a natural part of our ecosystem here. They got the 1988 Federal Cave Resource Protection Act passed and made it a federal crime to knowingly and purposely come into a caves, break formations, and take things out of the cave, as well as also to graffiti or deface the cave as well. But there is still a lot of damage done over time. So we also do a lot of work to come through and try to fix some of this damage that's been done. We call it the Cave Restoration Labor of Love, where we actually come through and can potentially epoxy some formations back together if they've been broken cleanly enough, in hopes they'll continue to grow. But it's not always the case, such as these all scattered throughout the room here. These have a lot of cave coral on them. It makes them extremely unique formations, and we could potentially do more harm than good trying to put these back together here throughout the cave. And then we also come through and do erase signatures and graffiti, as that can also infect the environment. But the same thing, can't get rid of all of them because the solutions that we use can also negatively impact the environment. So we have to be selective with what we do. And we also keep anything, though, that is 50 years or older as a historical reminder for those that have been here before us and how they used to see the cave. So with all of that, the biggest reason for this is because Tennessee actually has the most amount of caves out of any state in the U.S. As of 2023, we actually have about 11,777 caves in this state alone. The majority of them do come right on down to the middle of Tennessee here. This is a little bit of an older map, but it is a heat map, and the only difference really between 22 and 23 is that it's gotten significantly hotter in this exact same area. So we're always finding new caves and always discovering new ones, and with that many, they do make up a really big part of our environment. So we do a lot of work to try to help preserve those caves and make sure that they're doing okay. Do you guys have any questions about this?
How many miles of this cave have you explored?
Me personally,
Yeah.
I've probably only gone through maybe 20, maybe at most 25% of the cave.
That's still impressive. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because it takes a long time. With every single one of our tours combined here, all together, all 4 of our walking tours and all 4 of our adventure tours, we actually only use 10% of the cave in total. And part of that is to preserve the natural system of it. Also, part of it is it's really difficult to get to those further back parts of the cave. So, yeah.
I always think about it, like you mentioned Floyd Collins.
Yeah.
When I think about wild caving and stuff, to me, you're crawling through a hole in the ground. Like that's a lot of it. That's
exactly, and that is what it oftentimes is. I mean, we have a lot of nice large passageways here. These rooms are naturally opened up, but not every cave is like that. And also, we're a very dry cave too, which is nice too, because then we don't get too wet as we're going through. Cave water is pretty cold. I'm not a huge polar plunge person. Yeah. And we can actually come up here to the top. So this right up here is the largest room in our cave. Do be careful as you come up. It's a bit steep. You can go right here if you need it. And just watch your head. Some of these stalactites hang really low on the right side. But this is what we call the Hall of the Mountain King, named after these 3 large formations that we see here at the very top of the hill.
That is a steep climb. That is deceptively steep.
So, this probably doesn't really look like it's the largest room in the cave, does it? That's because this is actually a large overarching dome that continues far past where we can see up here. But if we can see up past here, we can actually see that this room is 140 feet tall, 150 feet wide, and 600 feet long. You could actually fit 2 NFL football fields, end zone to end zone, in this room here. But we're only able to see it in parts, and right now we see the part that has formations to give the room its name. The big one in the back there has 3 points on his head, so we say that it looks like he's wearing a crown, and we call him the Mountain King. This one here to the left, we say he looks a lot like a bishop chess piece, so we call him the Bishop. And then this one here, we call him the Knight, who lost his horse in the darkness, so we replaced it with a buffalo. Though these formations are quite large, this is not the largest formation in our cave. It's actually on the other side of the room here. But the only way to go up through these is to do that other tour, as it's 350 natural stone steps up through here. Quite a bit of extra time.
They take a lot of breaks.
Yeah, a little bit. They take small breaks up through. Then we also have our cinematic show on the other end of this room as well. But they don't really get to see over there, one of the oldest confirmed signatures in our cave. That's something I kind of like to show you guys here on this tour when we're up here.
Ooh.
That's actually Sheila Waters. I know it looks like it says MS, but it's actually SW. Sheila Waters was a tax revenue for the state of Tennessee. He came down here into our caves and looked for moonshine stills. Though he never actually discovered one, he left the signature all throughout. And because of his job, we were able to confirm that he both existed and that he was here in the cave at the time, which very vaguely might be able to make it out up there. It actually would have been October of 1869. Now, this is a little bit different than those Webb Summer School signatures. He would have actually taken the pine torch he was using as a light source, and he would have actually stuck it up into the ceiling to burn one single dot in at a time. So, it would have taken him a decent time to do this one, but his largest one is actually his entire name spelled out. It's about 7 foot long and 2.5 foot tall. Would have taken him hours to be able to do. But this one here, we just get to see his initials. And it's still pretty cool though.
Yeah.
You can also see some water dripping down from
there.
That's been a pretty consistent drip for a while, and there is some like fresh deposits there of the formation. But it's still going to take a pretty long time for us to ever be able to see too much of it grow. Works pretty good though for me to be able to point out to people that that's what makes these formations and why it takes so long for them to grow, is exactly that type of stuff. Do you guys have any questions about anything that we've seen so far?
Well, you said there's 4 different tours.
So we have the history tour for 45 minutes, the Cardinal Mountain history. Then we have our discovery tour, which is a nature-based tour, go over some of the animals and science of the cave. And then we have our Lanterns and Legends tour, which is only available as our last tour of the day on Sundays and Mondays, where you go through the cave with none of these lights turned on, and you're only going by oil lamp light, the same that the early explorers would have when they came through the cave here. And then lastly, it's our Hidden Gems tour, which is like a private book tour, which is kind of a nice mix of all of those tours together. If people want to be able to do the lantern tour and be able to do the history as well as the nature and see all.
Oh, how long is that tour?
It's about 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not too much terribly longer than the Discovery, but you kind of get to see and do a whole lot more.
How big of a group do you need for that?
I think just a minimum of 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just a minimum of 2.
Oh, okay.
Because I've had 2 on it. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a little while.
Yeah. So is there anything on this tour that people don't get to see on the other tour? Did you mention? You said the signature, right?
Yeah, I don't mention that or ever point it out to anyone if we go on the other tour. I like to mention it here for the history one because it has an interesting history here in the cave. But I mean, there's just stories that we tell on each one of the tours that are a little bit different and stuff. The lanterns one, that one's entirely about the experience of it because you're really seeing just how dark the cave is, and we actually do the full darkness in there, maybe more full dark than we can do at any other part of our tours, just because no one's lights are on throughout any part of the cave at all.
I know with Mammoth Cave, like John Wilkes Booth toured it and wrote in his journal about, or not, Booth's brother, I think Edwin. Any stories like that? Somebody wrote in their journal while they were exploring America, or any?
Probably. I don't know of any offhand. We did actually have one of the very first highways that ever ran through America came through Tennessee here, and that's only about 30 minutes away from here. So there were a lot of people coming through here. We also have a lot of Native American history through this area, not in our cave here. Funny enough, and the big reason for that is actually because they would hear the air coming in and out of the cave, what we call the cave breathing nowadays. It gives us good air quality in here, and it sounded like bad spirits, so they actually refused to ever come into the cave. So they came into caves throughout the area, in this area, but not into our cave.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a
Aaron
great
was actually
story.
the first human knowledge that we have of this cave at all.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
1810 was a pretty good year for finding caves.
Yeah.
There's a few other caves that were also discovered at a very similar time as well. As you do come down through here too, I can also show you another really interesting thing that I want to point out with this one as well. So, I'm not very first tour guide to ever be in here. I'm sure you would have guessed that in 68 years. But well before we ever were even Cumberland Caverns, there were people that came down into the cave to explore it. Hence Sheila and others. One of the really good examples of that is actually Charlie Hopkins here. Now, he was the very first tour guide that the cave ever saw, as he led groups down through here in late 1800s and early 1900s. He would have actually signed his name in here with lead paint, which was a little bit unusual for the time, but he came down here for at least this trip where his name is signed in December 28th of 1899.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We can find his signature all over the place, and he has a lot of history here in the cave. There's also some more signatures at the far end of the room over there, as well as there also are some on the far wall over here. If you keep an eye out, you might see some of them. There's quite a lot of them around.
You guys had issues with the bats or any of the white?
We do have, unfortunately, white nose in our cave here. We are white nose positive.
I guess all caves really are at this point. I mean,
most caves are, yeah. It's one of those things that spreads so ridiculously easy, and the bats are the biggest spreaders of it, that there's very little we can do to be able to keep it out of a cave, because as much as we can, clean our gear and be careful about it, they'll still move it around. There's some more signatures over there as well, too. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, no, I did not. Hold on.
I think that says Nashville.
Nashville girl.
Yeah, I think maybe Grotto.
Oh, okay.
The very first grotto the Tennessee ever saw was the Nashville Grotto. That was actually created by Tank Gorn and some of their buddies.
Well,
so.
Yeah, I was thinking a bachelorette party from Nashville came up here.
Possibly. That would have been a little bit of an older one now. And as we come through here, I'll actually tell you a really funny story about the chandelier.
Yeah.
So. You're asking about what was holding it up there, but a lot of people actually ask us how we clean it nowadays if we don't take it down, which is by bringing that lift in there, but we actually have to use an electric toothbrush. The chandelier is nearly 100 years old, so it's very delicate. And that's the only thing we found that can effectively clean it without doing damage to it. But Roy didn't know that when he first got it. He actually put it in the bed of his pickup truck, drove it on down here to Tennessee, because he didn't want to pay to ship it. And it was very filthy from being in the theater for so many years, covered in popcorn grease, tobacco smoke, and anything else you could imagine. So, as he came down through, he stopped at the local car wash and just tried to spray it off.
No.
We figured, well, that's the easiest way to do it, right?
His heart was in the right place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't necessarily the best idea. You can imagine. He blasted the crystals right off the chandelier. Now, thankfully, he was able to get all of them back, but not before a local newspaper caught wind and actually ended up writing a story about him chasing the crystals all throughout the small town parking lot. But he got it back together and we were able to put it back up here in the cave. Like I said, it's only ever been taken down one single time since 1981.
You know, Mammoth Cave got Yo-Yo Ma to come and play a show.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't compare to Edward Sharpe or Jefferson Starship.
Yeah.
I would much rather see something like that at a place like this. I cannot name a single Yo-Yo Ma song. I don't know.
Yeah, we're
I know the
also
name.
trying to like get some more rock and stuff down here too. We want to get some good stuff in here. Right up here is another interesting signature.
Oh.
So I do call this a signature because one of the guys used to travel with our co-founders. Instead of signing his name down here in the cave, he would pretty regularly come in and he would draw a picture. And he would do it with his carbide lamp. A lot of people think this one looks a lot like Abraham Lincoln, which I kind of see it.
I was going like with the Archie comics or somebody like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And it was very comic book style,
Yeah.
but can't really give him too much grief. It's a lot better than I could do.
Well, it's kind of cool actually.
Most people don't even notice that one either as we walk by because they're, looking at the room and the chandelier. Do you have any other questions about anything?
Last I heard, there was some sort of light source that could fight the white nose syndrome. Do you know anything about that? Or
I don't know anything about that.
it seemed like I heard it, and then I never heard anything else about it. So I was.
I mean, the only thing I could think of would be like a UV type of
Yeah.
thing. But I don't know how effectively that would work in like a cave.
On a large scale.
A large size,
Yeah.
yeah. Because one of the big things is technically you could get it out if you could remove everything in the cave, but we can't remove everything in the cave.
Yeah.
We couldn't even remove half of what's in the cave here.
Like of everything going on in society, I think that scares me. That's one of the things that scares me the most.
Yeah.
Now, look at the lower ceiling here, about an inch or so below this ceiling. There would have been water running in between it, plus there would have been water down here running, okay? And then it's freshwater table fill. So when the freshwater table fill,
We're talking about those Native Americans.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't come into the cave here for it, but we can see this stuff all along the wall here. This is what we call chert. It's a type of flint that we can find natively in this area and in the caves. This would have actually been a really big resource to early Native Americans, as they would actually use this stuff to make arrowheads and various other tools. Because when it's broken, it makes very sharp edges. And they would have actually gotten this stuff from the surface. This is a lot more resistant to weathering, so it would naturally fall off of cliffs or be pushed up to the surface as the rock and the soil around it was eroded. And this can be found pretty much all over throughout the cave. It's a big abundance in this area. Careful as you come down this hill, it's a bit steep and slippery. You can row right there
Appreciate
to the left
that,
if
thank you.
need it.
It's a cave in Indiana, I forget which one, but there was a former employee came in and robbed a tour. Well, and that's like one of the stories they tell is
I've never heard that one
Yeah.
before.
it's southern Indiana. I can't remember
interesting.
which one it was, but I love the weird stories.
Yeah. We got lots of crazy ones.
Yeah.
Most of them from before my time.
Yeah.
But
So you do concert photography. Any interesting stories there?
I don't know if you know like Screamo or anything. Most of that's what I've mostly done photos for. I did photographs for the Devil Wears Prada, Beartooth. There are a couple big names.
Oh, okay.
But the big reason where I got started with that is I actually was a part of a suicide prevention concert series. And we did a free concert every year for the youth in the area to come to the concert, listen to their favorite music, kind of have a day where they could talk to people if they needed. We had counselors on site to be able to talk to people, kind of just get the word out there that there are people that see them and care about them.
Oh, that's nice.
So we did that for quite a long time. It was very popular. We actually were planning on taking over for a Warped Tour, but
That's kind of a big deal.
yeah, COVID happened, so it didn't end up happening, unfortunately. So I did a lot of that, and that was kind of where I got my passion for doing photography for concerts, as well as just photography. And I do photography in general otherwise, but
For magazines or for weddings or...
mostly just for art, actually. I've been in a lot of galleries all over the world.
Oh, that's nice.
Funny extra story too here. So said to Sheila, never found any moonshine stills in our cave, but there is one right here. That's not because he wasn't good at his job. We actually have no history of moonshining down here at all. And this one actually came when a local sheriff came on one of our first tours when we opened up. He said every cave he had ever been in had a moonshine still. Because we didn't have one, we were in a real cave. So he later came back and brought us one of his confiscated moonshine stills to make us a real cave
Well,
here.
that was nice.
Yeah.
Question mark?
They did punch a couple holes in the back, so I can't give out any free samples today.
Well, that can be fixed.
Yeah. It is a real moonshine still, and it was actually used here in Tennessee. So this is interesting. I'm not sure what cave it came from because I do think it did come from another cave. I'll have to try to figure that out sometime. They may or may not
Thank
know.
you. Whew. All right. It's where the heat hits us and we feel exhausted.
Yeah, big glass get fogged up.
Phew. Well, that was fun. That was quite a treat. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoy it.
And again, I just removed about 4.5 minutes of walking on gravel. The audio's not great and the camera's kind of shaky, but I gave you the entire adventure inside of the cave. What'd you think? I really liked Derek. He was a great guy. We gave him a little tip when we got out of there, and just a nice fella. They actually have like a little, not a trading card, but something like that they give you at the end of the tour. And it does have, if you don't have any cash on you and you want to tip your guide, you can do it electronically. They didn't really ask for a tip or anything, which I thought was classy. And I kind of liked having a little card with Derek on it, that he was such a nice fella. On the way back, we talked about concerts and photography and caves. Had a really nice conversation. On his off time, he was planning on taking a little trip and hitting some more caves. And that sounds like the life to me. And obviously, I'm not too worried about keeping an image on the camera at the moment, so yeah, forgive me for that. Here's another tour group about to go out, watching the video. Again, I'm looking forward to getting back there. That was a cool cave. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I would love to hear from anybody who's been there. Love to hear from anybody who has been to any of the concerts there. I think that is just way too cool. But yeah, Cumberland Caverns in McMinnville, Tennessee. Really love this area, and look forward to going back sometime in the near future. But let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.